The Two and Out CFL podcast with Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones starts now.
Well, hello. We're coming out of week 15 of the 2025 CFL season. I'm Travis Currah. Sheldon Jones enjoying his better half's birthday today. So happy birthday, Tammy. Over the weekend, I was with my much better three-quarters, Taylor. And we celebrated her birthday in the Rocky Mountains. Both of our better halves celebrating birthdays over the past couple days. So let's get to it. Let's get to the games from week 15. But first, we must start the show with talking about some very sad news we learned on Friday. And that's Hamilton Tiger Cats general manager Ted Goveia passing away after his battle with cancer came to an end. And it was previously announced that it was going to be Team Ted Night in Hamilton. A team that he was most recently with, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He helped end that Grey Cup drought there in 2019 after 29 long years and got his dream job in Hamilton just 9 months ago. And passing away Friday morning. I thought the tribute that the Ticats put together was very well done. The sentiments across the entire league, amazing to see. And actually, all levels of football in Canada. A great U Sports career as well. And now, of course, with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Now, I mentioned the Grey Cup drought that he helped end in Winnipeg in 2019. Could another Grey Cup drought come to an end this year? The Ticats not winning since 1999. Ted Goveia's fingerprints obviously all over that Hamilton Tiger Cats team. And they got the win 32-21 over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Friday night, where Chris Streveler gets the start for the Bombers, and let's just say a shaky start to the game when Jamal Peters picks off Chris Streveler on a screen pass. You can't have that happen. Now, it was a great play. It was not an easy catch for Jamal Peters to make. But one play later, the Ticats are in the end zone, and they're up 7-0 quite early on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And then, you know what? It was a short time later. The Ticats were not ready on a 3rd and short. Bombers lined up. Chris Streveler hit Carrick Wheatfall for a big touchdown, and it was a tie game not long after that. So off to the races in this one. And here's the thing. We knew that Winnipeg was going to be able to run the ball, and they were going to focus on running the ball. Just not quite enough. Brady Oliveira did have 15 carries, 116 yards, 7.7 yards a carry, which is obviously phenomenal. If you're bringing down over 7 yards a carry every single week, you're going to win a lot of games. But it's the 15 carries, you know. And as the Ticats started to pull away, as the game went on and on, they just couldn't run the ball as much anymore, and they had to try and push the ball down the field. When you start the game with an interception and you start trailing in the game, the flow just dictates that you should probably start pushing the ball down the field, and the Bombers did not have that luxury here. And I have seen many Bomber fans over the past few weeks here thinking that maybe Terry Wilson should start to get a shot to start for these Bombers. And if Zach Collaros is not ready to go long term, maybe we do see that happen, as the Bombers have now lost 3 straight games, 2 to the Riders, 1 here to the Ticats, and to get into the playoffs. I know like the tiebreakers and the odds and that kind of thing are still in their favor to get into the playoffs here, but got to win some games down the stretch to go into the playoffs with some sort of momentum. The Bombers did have 2 sacks, one from Devin Veresek and one from Philip Osai, who was a bit of a menace in the backfield all game long for the Ticats. Unfortunately, those 2 players came together on a scary play for the rookie Devin Veresek, who's been having a great season. And Philip Osai makes contact with his head. Obviously, don't want to hit your own teammate. And he ended up leaving the game on a cart. They were securing his neck, and it appears he is healthy afterwards. He was moving all extremities. So it was a scary moment, but good to see that it looks like he's going to be okay. There's more to life than football, even if we don't want to admit it sometimes. A big moment early in the game was a pass interference review, and I got some messages from Corey saying, "What is PI?" That was an interesting one. You know what? There was some hand fighting going on there. Maybe a tug of the jersey. And there was also a moment in the Ottawa and BC game where Bob Dice had his hand on the challenge flag, and he thought about throwing it, but he didn't end up throwing it. I thought it maybe looked just as egregious, as this play from Dexter Lawson Jr. on Shamar Bridges. The play ended up standing. In general, I'm okay with them letting them go a little bit. If you don't, change the trajectory or the route of the receiver, and you don't do crazy jersey grabbing, arms, restricted, things like that, I'm okay with that. But let's just be consistent. I don't know if this is the pattern that I'm noticing where, as the season goes on, more pass interference plays get let go than not. And especially in the playoffs. But if you're going to call it like that in September, why don't we call it like that in June? That's all I'm asking. Just be a little bit more consistent when it comes to that. At the end of the game, Winnipeg ended up pulling within 11 here, and they recovered the onside kick. Now, I believe this one was another review that came down from the eye in the sky. The old replay center ended up calling Nick Dembski for illegal interference, which I also didn't think looked too... I feel like we've seen crazier things than onside kicks, but maybe I'm wrong. Winnipeg then gets to try again because of that, and then they go offside. Hamilton, of course, recovers that attempt. Andre Proulx, I don't know if you thought Hamilton accepted the penalty, but Scott Miladovich is like, no, decline the penalty. I want the ball. So there was some drama at the end of the day here, and the Bombers, ended up making it a little bit closer at the end, but it's not like the Ticats didn't run the ball either. This is a few weeks in a row where they excel on the ground. Greg Bell, 22 carries, 137 yards, over 6 yards a carry. And that touchdown on the ground. He had a touchdown receiving at the beginning of the game, too. 3 catches for 31 yards. Tim White had 5 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown, and Kenny the King Lawler was the game's leading receiver, playing his old team. 7 catches, 97 yards here, and he had an interesting quote, before the game, throwing some shade at the Bombers, saying that, hey, these guys went out and they signed Dylan Mitchell and disrespected me. So, whatever bulletin board material these elite players need to fire themselves up on game day, number 89 clearly took exemption to the way he was treated by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on the way out, and made it happen. Bo Levi Mitchell, 21 of 28, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, got it done. Got another victory under the belt. Chris Streveler, 18 of 29, 2 interceptions and a touchdown, 241 yards. He did have 82 yards rushing, but not enough. to beat the Ticats. Sometimes you just need those explosive plays, and those were not on the field for the Bombers. So you know that everybody's going to be watching the status of Zach Collaros going forward. Winnipeg's next game is in Ottawa. The Ticats' next game hosting the Edmonton Elks, and all of a sudden with the Alouettes beating Saskatchewan, with the Ticats beating Winnipeg here, a little bit of a cushion there for first place in the East Division. But only one thing has been figured out so far in regards to the playoffs, and we'll get to that very shortly. The second half of the Friday night doubleheader was on the West Coast, where the BC Lions, oh boy, have another great offensive outing. 38-27, the final victory there over the Ottawa RedBlacks. Now, this is the sixth straight game where the BC Lions have scored 30 points or more. Unfortunately for them, they were only 500 in this stretch. In 1991, Doug Flutie went 8 straight games as a member of the BC Lions, scoring 30 points or more. Will the BC Lions get to that offensive output going forward? Right off the hop, though, the Ottawa RedBlacks, Dustin Crum, hot off that win last week in the nation's capital, they looked to hurt BC deep, and it almost happened. Luther Hakanavanu almost makes this huge play for the RedBlacks. No Lions anywhere near him. And if they connect on that play, who knows where momentum takes the RedBlacks from there. It did hit his hands. I'm seeing a lot of criticism on Luther for that one. It was overthrown by about, I'd say, half a yard. If it was a little bit closer, man, he makes that catch and he's off to the races, and maybe it's a big score to put up the RedBlacks up 6. But once the Lions got the ball, there was just no question about it. We should look at this drive chart for the BC Lions. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4, actually, there are only 4 possessions of the first half ended up in a touchdown. The last possession ended up with them just kneeling it out. So absolute dominance. Their first punt didn't come until about 45 seconds left in the third quarter from Carl Meyer. So the RedBlacks could not make a stop on the BC Lions. Keon Hatcher getting a touchdown. It was a party for, everybody wearing orange and black. Let's pull up the stats for these guys. Keon Hatcher, the touchdown. Nathan Rourke, 2 rushing touchdowns. James Butler, a rushing touchdown. You would have liked to have seen Butler's output a little bit better. 3.4 yards a carry, 13 carries for 44 yards. That RedBlacks defense remains tough to run against. There was a moment in the game where he dived over the top of a pile on third down, and Javon Santos Knox met him over top of that pile and stopped them on third down. So the RedBlacks did try to make things interesting, and one of my takeaways from this game was how aggressive BC's defense was. There's some give and take with that, though. They ended up sacking Dustin Crum 7 times. Matthew Betts had 4 of them. Now, I think one was called back because of a roughing the passer, and that, in part, is part of the problem for the BC Lions here. Because Marcus Moore had an unnecessary roughness that extended a drive. That one ended in a Dustin Crum rushing touchdown. Levi Bell had a roughing the passer on third down. The RedBlacks ended up scoring that ridiculous Justin Hardy touchdown on that drive where he just kept 1 foot in bounds. It was originally called incomplete, but they went to the review and saw that, whoa, That is a catch. That is one of the catches of the year from number 2. It happened later in the game where Betts took another roughing the passer. It led to an Ottawa touchdown where they pulled within 11 points with 30 seconds left in the game. So these 15-yard penalties that the BC defense was taking, I guess there's 3 of them there. They all ended in Ottawa touchdowns. So Dustin Crum taking advantage of what the defense was giving them. But if they don't take those penalties, BC doesn't, this game might just be a little bit uglier. Nathan Rourke, 21 of 26, 308 yards and a touchdown. It certainly felt like it was more than that. Very efficient, making things count. Like I said, 4 straight touchdown drives. Dustin Crum, 30 of 35, 307 yards and a touchdown. He added 58 yards on the ground, while Nathan Rourke added 36 yards on the ground. But that Dustin Crum, a pounding this guy takes. It's hard not to be a big fan of him, but it does feel like maybe Drew Brown has a little bit more of that firepower, the big play ability. But, one of the big things in this game was that the RedBlacks, they lost William Stanback. And Daniel, he only had 2 carries in the game. 2 carries, 1 yard. He had 3 catches for 18, but Daniel Adeboboye gets in there, 5 carries, 28 yards, so 5.6 yards a carry. We'll see if Daniel Adeboboye gets the start next week, if Stanback's okay, because as far as fantasy football goes, it's been a challenge being able to build a roster with the way the salaries are right now. So with that win, the Ottawa RedBlacks, they remain in the basement of the East Division, 4 wins, 9 losses. I was kind of skeptical about that big spread, 9.5 point favorites, the BC Lions. But looking back in history, those East teams traveling to the West Coast for late starts, I feel like I do some of my best work at, midnight, 11 o'clock, but I realize that not everybody is like me. Clearly, the RedBlacks are not. It has to be encouraging for, the BC Lions to see the aggressiveness from that defense. Mike Benavides was fired up. I think there was a moment where they had too many players on the field and he was completely losing his mind, but they kept it together and they got a win. So they still hold the crossover spot, and they're tied with Winnipeg. Both teams 6 wins, 7 losses. So we're gonna have to see what happens. They could still make the playoffs in the West, and now it's in play. What if Winnipeg crosses over and they play as the away team in the Grey Cup? In Winnipeg, of course. That would make for a crazy scenario in November, and I'd love to see it, actually. Now, we're going to talk about this Argos and Elks game. It was John Candy night at BMO Field, but I kind of want to go to the comments that we'd go to YouTube last week about the Argos / MLSE and Buffalo Bills partnership. And I thought there were some really good comments from Two and Out Nation. Chris Lawton saying, when they grow the game of football, they don't really mean the CFL, do they? And I do think that is a pretty important point and an important observation. I have noticed that the CFL has been really quiet on the MLSE and Buffalo Bills partnership. Does that mean that they're not big fans of it? That they were not privy to this partnership before it was announced? I certainly think that is interesting as well. Andrew on the YouTube channel saying he's optimistic against better judgment about the partnership with the Bills. He says, a lot of people need to be led to things in order to discover and enjoy them. There will be people who check out the Argos and eventually become fans if they see the Bills promoting it. As it is right now, younger people watch the NFL religiously and see the CFL as a bush league for boomers and degenerate gamblers. If an NFL franchise is willing to throw their weight behind a team, the NFL-only demographic of football fans in Canada may give the CFL a real look. Brock says, last week on the pod we mentioned, hey, if Josh Allen wore a Chad Kelly jersey, that would be crazy. I saw him endorsing a product called Natrol, like a sleep and restore product. I mean, if he's willing to do that, he should be willing to wear an Argos jersey, don't you think? I don't know what the payday is comparably, but I definitely think that it's not that far-fetched. Another comment from WBY73. Just wanted to say I'm a new subscriber and follower after getting into podcasts during COVID. 27 years as an Argos season ticket holder, elementary teacher, and coach for youth flag and touch football in Toronto for 20 years, plus a Riders shareholder. Love your passion for the game and respect for the entire league. I'm torn, as I love the NFL, but don't love it so much I want the NFL and the Argos to die. There's room for both, and it's ignorant for Canadians, especially sports fans who love repping the six, to continue to ignore and openly denigrate the CFL and in the GTA, the Argos. Keep up the great work, and now you're a part of my weekly CFL podcast rotation. Have a Sask pizza for me. Oh yeah, you gotta love that Regina-style pizza. Also had a comment on our Patreon page from David saying the Buffalo Bills are building a $2 billion stadium that in the long term can't afford it because of the size of the region. Southern Ontario / Toronto are considered a part of that territory. Growing up in Buffalo and still living in Western New York and a huge fan of the CFL, I do like this partnership on paper. Hopefully this does benefit the Argos by growing the game. Yeah, there we go. That MLSE Buffalo Bills partnership continues to have CFL fans talking. I'd love to continue to hear your thoughts on our channel right on this video. Or you can send an email to twoandoutcfl@gmail.com, because Bart also sent us an email there because let's just say my fantasy football prowess after having a few good weeks, not good. Bart says he's coming for me. He's up to third. He's passed me in the patron league. And he had a good one. Spencer Brown as a member of his team, and Jake Herslow. Like, this guy is on absolute fire. DeMonte Coxey out of the lineup for the Argos. A veteran Davaris Daniels out of the lineup for the Argos. And in comes Jake Herslow. Touchdowns in 5 straight games. And the moment of the game, can we start calling him Touchdown Jake, Hurdling Jake, Jumping Jake? Well, he tried to hurdle Cordell Jackson of the Edmonton Elks, and that was telegraphed, to say the very least. Jackson jumps up and hammers Jake Herslow. I understand that he ended up getting called for unnecessary roughness, and there was some helmet-to-helmet contact there. Maybe if that wasn't, it doesn't get flagged. But man, the guy's trying to jump over you. There's only so much you can do. He jumped up, the contact was made, Herslow got up, he was sniffing smelling salts on the sideline afterward. He was good to go. But man, to see the player, have that telegraphed, have that scouting, unveiled on Jake Herslow, I thought that was an awesome move by the Elks. And this was not the same Nick Arbuckle that we've gotten accustomed to, despite the Argos getting a 31-30 win over the Elks on Saturday. Throwing interceptions, the pressure was there. He didn't look comfortable at all. It didn't look like the guy we had seen pre-bye. The 6 games leading up to that, 14 touchdowns against 2 interceptions. In this one, Nick Arbuckle, 4 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. This is an Elks team that was unable to take the ball away from offenses. The injured Jake Seresna was the one tied for the team league in interceptions. But when McManus gets a sack, Jamin Pelly gets a sack, Derek Parrish gets 2, Brandon Dozier gets a sack as well. These guys were struggling. The defense was struggling getting to the quarterback, and it seemed like the defense was a big part of this winning game for the Toronto Argonauts, but we'll get to that. Cordell Jackson, Kenneth Logan Jr., J.J. Ross, Tyrell Ford, all with interceptions for the Edmonton Elks. And in this game, all of those early points by the Edmonton Elks were off of interceptions. So obviously it is good for your team to take advantage of those. The first turnover was the Elks stopping the Argos on 3rd and short. I did think that was an interesting play call there, but of course the Elks made it happen, and then Justin Rankin is into the end zone to put the Elks up 7-0. And the Argos, the way that they were able to keep Justin Rankin in check, 12 carries, 27 yards, 2.3 yards a carry. Yeah, that's the same Justin Rankin that rattled off a 31-yard touchdown, a 90-yard touchdown against the Calgary Stampeders a week ago. The Argos were not having that at all. And then we see Nick Arbuckle throw an interception. He threw 4 of them. Cordell Jackson got that one. The Elks are in the end zone. Keon Julian Grant, after that one, that put the Elks up 2 scores in the first half. And it felt like, man, if these Argos are going to keep turning the ball over, they actually got stopped on 3rd and 1 late in the first half as well. And Ryan Dinwiddie ends up throwing the challenge flag there. I thought it was a bad challenge. I mean, maybe hindsight's 20/20 because TSN cannot see the angle of the ball. So challenging that, especially on that one, was not the right choice. Edmonton unable to take advantage, but I thought a critical moment at the end of the first half. Jake Julian punts the ball. Well, before he punts the ball, takes a time count violation, backs them up 10 yards. So instead of snapping, from the 19 and punting from the 4-yard line or whatever, they snap from the 9, punt from the end zone. Janarian Grant returns at 15 yards. They're instantly in field goal territory. And Liram Hairelahu puts the Argos on the board, 14-3 at the end of the first half. You're still kind of happy that you're up 11, but the way that happened, Mark Killam not happy taking that time count violation. And his unhappiness would continue to grow in the second half because the Argos start off with a Jake Herslow touchdown drive, 4 plays, 81 yards. And then a couple series later, Tyrell Ford picks off Nick Arbuckle, and Cole Snyder rushes it in, the backup quarterback for the Elks, and they take a 21-11 lead. And that's where things start to get really frustrating. For the Elks, no more touchdowns, only field goals from the here on out, and even Nick Arbuckle gets hurt. He suffers a calf injury and tries to stay in the game. In fact, I do believe he threw an interception post-calf injury, ends up getting pulled out of the game there. So a lot of the talk going into this game was whether Chad Kelly would play. A couple weeks ago, Chad Kelly posting an Instagram video saying the comeback, September 13th. He was not in uniform. Nick Arbuckle gets the start. This is so weird because he struggles. He throws 4 interceptions, leaves the game. They end up still winning the game. So maybe the decision has been made by or for the Argos that Chad Kelly's got to go back in there. However, Jarrett Dagey is the one that ends up taking over for Nick Arbuckle, and he makes the throws he had to make as well. The Argonaut defense I talked about, 5 sacks, including the one that happened late in the fourth quarter. Tyler Chatfield scoops the fumble on the sacked Cody Fajardo, takes it into the end zone, and puts the Argos up 28-27. Obviously a huge moment. At that point, Cody Fajardo had like 20 straight incompletions. But you turn the ball over once and it ends up in your end zone. That makes all the difference in the world. There was a challenge on that one for roughing the passer. I thought maybe they had a case for the low stuff, like under the knee, because we've certainly seen that before. But the refs did not see it the way I saw it, and the touchdown stood. Argos take the lead. But Cody Fajardo did his thing, got the Elks into field goal range. They end up getting the lead back. Not a big enough lead, 30-28. And then, you're thinking in good shape. Argos backup quarterback Jarrett Dagey, at this point, the third string quarterback for the Argos, gets in there and he makes things happen. The big one, obviously, was the 3rd and 4 on the Argo 35 and hits Mackay Polk just past the outstretched fingers of the defensive back to get the first down, to extend the drive, and eventually set up Liram Hajrullahu for a 48-yard touchdown. And how about another clutch catch for Dejon Brissett, a 22-yarder on that game-winning drive? You remember the one he had last week where he steps out of bounds with, 1 second left, and the Argos getting that win, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, on Labor Day. And now he gets a big catch here in that final drive from Jarrett Dagey, and the Argos win 31-30. But the story doesn't stop there. Ryan Dinwiddie he's a very emotional guy. We know that. We've seen him harshly criticize his own team this season. He runs by the Elks bench, flagrantly celebrating, mocking, imitating Liram Hajrullahu, like kicking a field goal past the Elks bench. And then a bit of a scuffle ensues. Mark Killam, he took a few steps towards Ryan Dinwiddie. Kevin Mattel ends up holding back Ryan Dinwiddie. And after, Dinwiddie told reporters that there's a pretender not in our building anymore that was chirping all game long personally to him. Some people speculating that that's Jordan Williams, recently cut by the Argos and benched, now a member of the Edmonton Elks. Apparently one of the coaches on the Elks chirping the Argos as well. People have said that maybe that's Demetrius Maxey, who was a coach of that D-line with the Argos recently, now with the Elks. Is this just another case why having the sidelines on the same side of the field is ridiculous? I don't get why that's a thing. Maybe it's a stadium, design, but it's a flaw. And sidelines got to be in the opposite side of the field. And that's crap from a coach to be at. Like, have you ever seen anything like that? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. but the Argos get another win, and hey, maybe it fires up their players. I don't know. But now the Argos have an opportunity here by playing the Montreal Alouettes on Friday. But the Alouettes look good on Saturday as well. So that's going to be another interesting game on Friday night football. Those Elks, on the other hand, they got to go back out east. They got to play the Ticats, a team that just beat the Bombers. And you know what? Those Elks do have the Riders on the 27th as well. I know looking good after that Labor Day rematch, but I think it's integral that they beat Hamilton here if they want to keep the playoff hopes alive, and then try to take care of those Riders coming up on the 27th. However, I'll say this. The Riders were going into their bye against the Alouettes and lost. The Elks will be going into their bye after that game with the Riders on the 27th. I did mention it. Those Montreal Alouettes get that win over the Saskatchewan Roughriders 48-31. I don't think there's much analysis to offer in this one. Riders experiencing some injuries on their defense, including starting cornerback Marcus Sales and starting cornerback Devon Campbell. Now, I don't know if the Riders were put in ratio problems here. The amount of injuries they've had with Canadian receivers, and then also with the Canadian cornerback Devon Campbell. So that means they brought in Currah Exume, who was a 8th round pick, I believe in 2019. I'll double check that with Exume. Yeah, he was drafted by the Blue Bombers, actually, in 2019 in the 8th round. He did go to the University of Montreal, but he's been mostly playing on special teams. And this was his first start as a starting cornerback. And it did not go well. I don't know. Just watch the film, man. It was bad. Now, I don't know if the Riders come into this one struggling with their emotions. You know, the high of winning Labor Day, the high of going into Winnipeg and winning the Banjo Bowl, and then basically just coming out flat here. Exume's struggles in the secondary weren't the reason why the pass rush wasn't getting home. I know McLeod gets rid of the ball a little bit faster there, but this is also the McLeod Bethel-Thompson that the Als needed when they signed him, right? Like, they need the insurance in the quarterback position in case their starter goes down, and this is the guy that they signed. And if the Riders were going to be able to pressure him, if they're going to play the zone, and the Als are going to, test that corner all day long, and if they can't adjust to it, they could win. And the Riders going into the bye. This is kind of funny. Sheldon's power rankings, I'm excited to see them as we get ready for Week 16. Because the Riders number 1 and the Als number 9. I don't know how far you can move either team, but it'll be interesting to see. I was texting my brother. I said that'd be one of the worst defensive back performances I've ever seen. And then he replies, I think they should have just thrown a Regina Ram player in there. He was so out of position. He couldn't even commit pass interference. And I said, well, they might have been better off with 11 out there. And my brother said, they should have just cornerback blitzed him every play. I could have got a touchdown with my 2 bad knees. Well, who took advantage of it? But Tyson Philpott. 9 targets, 9 catches, 238 yards. 2 touchdowns for number 6. Absolutely destroyed the Riders. Just torched. An interesting moment, I think it was in the first half, 10-3. Wesley Sutton gets to the ball at the same time as Keyshawn Johnson gets the interception. And what happened was that they called pass interference. Moss challenges it. And the way I watched it, he just went for the ball. He didn't, push the receiver out of the way and then catch the ball. So I guess the officials saw it the same way. That interception stood. We had Travis Tice get injured for the Alouettes at running back. So they have their first 100-yard rushing game of the season, as Stevie Scott III gets 19 carries, 125 yards against the number one rush defense in the CFL. So it's not all on Exume. Bart's email also saying, thank you for bringing up the going into the bye curse. It certainly hit Sask this week. Look at Calgary's losses this year. Every one of them involved injuries. Of course, Vernon Adams Jr. hurt against Montreal, Ottawa. But against Edmonton, Calgary had to start a rookie on the O-line. Then an early injury on the O-line caused them to put another rookie in and move a vet to a position he'd never played. And then the two D linemen get hurt, and boom, Calgary loses its edge. With Sask, those two corners that couldn't play made a world of difference. They looked like me trying to play out there. Phil Plott exploited them in the worst way. He also says, hey, I saw a Stamps jersey that says Riders suck, so maybe I'll go with that if I end up winning the Patron Fantasy League. Now, a critical moment, I thought, early in the fourth quarter, the Riders are down 2 scores. And it's 3rd and 5 at midfield. I thought maybe the defense can't stop anything. Maybe you consider going for it there. They didn't. They punted it away. The very next play, Tyson Philpott, 77 yards, tackled at the 1. Former Rider Shea Patterson punches it into the end zone, and the Owls are up 24. Riders also losing a couple more starters there. Defensive lineman Shane Ray and linebacker CJ Revis. We will have to see if those guys are going to be good to go after the bye. Jake Mayer gets into the game late. Gets a quick touchdown, but 6 of 10, 118 yards, a touchdown and a pick for him. Trevor Harris, 23 of 32, a touchdown and a pick for him. But McLeod Bethel-Thompson, 379 yards, 20 of 26, and 3 touchdowns. And I also talked already about Tyson Philpott. So, Riders are in the bye week. They'll be thinking about that one for quite some time. It was a rough day at the office for them. Joe was the leading receiver, 8 catches, 95 yards there. But, I mean, when you're giving up 238 yards to one receiver, that's not a good day at the office. Tyrese Beverette, 10 tackles for the Alouettes, a quarterback sack, a forced fumble there as well. The Alouettes, it was a complete game, man. And this is why, if they could have decent quarterback play, people knew they were going to be right into the mix. Right to the end. So those Alouettes play in the Argos on Friday. The BC Lions play in the Calgary Stampeders on Friday as well. And then the Saturday doubleheader is the Bombers and the RedBlacks, the Elks, and the Ticats. I go 3-1 in Pick'em, as I'm sure many do, but I'm sure there are a lot out there that maybe saw the writing on the wall for the Riders going into the bye and ended up taking the shot at the Alouettes. And that is good for you. Quickly, I'm going to take a look at the fantasy CFL Podcast Fantasy League, because I was actually against Sheldon Jones in Week 15. And I don't have hopes that I beat him, and I did not. 84.6 for me, 122.1 for him. That does it. Thanks for joining me, Travis Currah, for this Week 15 recap. We'll talk to you later this week to get you ready for Week 16 of the CFL season.
The Two and Out CFL podcast is written, produced, and hosted by Travis Currah and co-hosted by Sheldon Jones. Subscribe to Two and Out on all major podcast platforms and YouTube to keep up to date with future shows.